Okay, let's follow this discussion into this whole pricing thing, because as you talked about the transparency in pricing, everybody knows what things cost. It's very difficult to build the magic into your product and garner a little extra. So how do you determine how do you figure out pricing strategies? How do you position yourself? What are the decisions that you have to make?
Well, I mean, we're very much a time and materials pricing model. We take X items, they cost X per day. We take this amount of labor, it costs X, and we add it all up, and that gives us the final number. Now, the question always is an intangible. A labor cost, we know what it is, what that cost is per day. The equipment cost is, there's all sorts of formulas based on what it costs me, what my expected life of service is, and so on. But what it gets right down to is what is the client willing to bear. And so that's how the pricing model sort of works. And then if any of you saw the Wall Street Journal last week, there was a story about how the retailers have gone to a permanent discounting strategy, whereas 30% off is the new normal. That's their target price, is 30% off. And I think, unfortunately, our industry led them to that.
Well, then JCPenney tried that, and then they had to take them off a cliff, and now they're coming back to the sale.
Right. But in our industry, 99% of the invoices that go out of my office show a discount on it. And that seems to be the industry normal.
So, Rusty, does that mean that pricing's arbitrary, and it's all on how you present it? Now it's just a marketing issue, because it makes the marketing people really happy.
Yeah, you have to qualify a sale. I mean, every step of the way. Communicate. The people crave quick, fast communication right now. You have to turn quotes around quickly, and they have to have the right information flow both ways. You have to be getting as much out of the communication as the customer is when you're starting the project, because you can even know then to shut it down and not worry about it. If they're going to say, no, we're just going to take the lowest price, whatever that is, because I have to. And that might be the level you're working at in that particular company or university, whatever it is. And you have to watch out to not be blindsided by somebody else's strategic initiative. I got to have that job. So they might just say,
competitor strategic initiative.
Absolutely, yeah.
Take you out or to gain
They
market share.
They may want it because they're tired of seeing you do it for 4 or 5 years in a row, or whatever reason.
So part of it, the pricing strategy from Murray's standpoint, or Murray's point, was that it's what the customer is willing to pay, and then the next step is, what are you willing to do it for?
Right.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So don't get caught up in what other people are doing.
Yeah.
So
you have to tell your story better than somebody else does. That's the important part of it. When you go out and say, this is our level of credibility, we do 1,100, 1,500 events a year of this caliber and size. We have the experience to back this up. Don't just rely on price, because it's that moment when somebody steps up to the microphone is too critical to your company and your message to leave it to somebody who doesn't care as much as we do.
Right. Good. So, Mark, pricing strategy. How do you figure out what things are worth? What's driving your pricing strategy?
Well, I guess I start with an assumption that, as Murray said, the internet is commoditizing everything, right? And not everything. And I think that's a force for good, actually, in the world, in that it forces discipline into building value of things that can't be commoditized, right? So the internet isn't bad for your business, Tom. I mean, it's not, you can't commoditize what you do.
Not yet.
Law firms, not yet. Accounting firms, services, you can't. But if you're building a lot of value or a pricing model into equipment rentals or into equipment, you're going to struggle, because people are going to find cheaper equipment everywhere. So you have to kind of think you have to change your approach and in the way that you price things.
Well, you're making an interesting point. You just made me think about something differently. You're right. It's very difficult for the client to commoditize what I do in a service business. It's real easy for me to commoditize it.
Just buy a book. Can't you just read a book and do what you do?
Well, if you present yourself as a commodity, and if you formalize it,
Yeah.
okay, then you're going to commoditize yourself.
Right.
And is that so? Where is transparency good for you and helpful? Because like you said, it causes you to focus on other things. So
Right.
if pricing is transparent, then you have to have the discipline of promoting the value proposition that you were alluding to.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah.
So I'll ask, are we really commoditized, or did we commoditize ourselves?
I think it's an evolution. I think they're both the same answer. Yes, we're commoditized in many ways. Yes, we always fight to get away from that commoditization. Is it our own fault? No, I think it's just the evolution of business.
So just the transparency of information in the world is the logical outcome.
Right.
Yeah. When I said you tell your story better, I see less times in the event world where I'm going up against a price list, just a gear list with line item pricing on it. I see other companies are struggling with the same issue, so they will put, a two paragraph kind of glorification of what we're going to do for you piece together and with a final price at the bottom of it, which is better for everybody, because then you're selling creativity, ideas, and reliability as opposed to just line item pricing. However, part of our business is systems integration, and everything is a line item price there. And even if you have enough good stuff in there to win a job, there's some procurement person looking at it afterwards and typing in some of the line items and going, you could have saved 12 cents on this item, you could have saved $2.40 on this item, and they're pressuring the people that you're dealing with in those departments to buy the stuff themselves and ask us to come in and install it. And by the way, we need a binding estimate of your labor to do that.
Making it harder and harder to.
Yeah, and we're going, anybody that wants to do that, we're saying it's time and materials, or we're not doing it, because they have just as much control over the schedule as we do.
So that is the ultimate issue in pricing. Do your pricing strategies include saying no? When do you say no? What's the no criteria?
Absolutely. If client comes in and it's purely price driven, unless it's a very quiet time of the year, we'll walk out, we'll walk away.
Yeah, I mean, we have a certain, we have a margin threshold that we target, but I don't think we do a great job of saying no early. We get sometimes, we probably waste a lot of energy in our sales cycle chasing the wrong business, I would say.
Okay. So what would be the greatest thing that you could come up with that would improve that discipline on the pricing strategy? What is it you need or wish you had that would allow you to say no sooner?
Probably a playbook of if somehow we had an algorithm or something that said, if in these, you ask this customer these 4 questions, and they don't answer yes or no or whatever the way you want them to, that's not something we're going to take any further. If we had that kind of formula, something like that, something that if we could get our arms around this and develop some kind of a recipe or formula to give to the salespeople, because I think some of them are very good at this, some of them aren't, and so I think we need to standardize this a little better.
Okay, so there's some portion of the answer is a recipe, is figuring out what the recipe is
Right.
for disqualifying a customer.
Sure.
What else goes in the formula?
It's definitely qualification steps. You have to ask the questions and get the right answers. However, not everybody's sophisticated enough on either side of it sometimes to get you to the right place where you can make that decision. But you have to press and you have to keep training it. Negotiation skills is something that I share books with people all the time if I see they keep getting into positions where jobs get away from them because they didn't understand something that the client was asking for. And I don't think it's something that not everybody just ultimately has it. I mean, when you were a salesperson, the numbers that you were able to accomplish back in your day, there's a lot of people that, I can't handle that kind of capacity, they don't see it. But, having the ability to negotiate quickly and feel out a process really helps. They have some level of negotiation skill. They got a car from their parents when they were 16, but how do you translate that into the business world with somebody who might be even better at negotiating than you are on the other side of the deal?
Well, is negotiating dead, or does transparency negate negotiating?
Oh, God, no.
Okay.
God, no, not at all, not at all. It makes negotiating even more important because you negotiate on different factors. Now, we're all working hard to differentiate our companies from everyone else. If you go on the web, everybody's got great people, they care more about your project, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you go on the web, we all look the same. How do we differentiate that? And the things that I've been telling my guys is that this is a personality business. Our clients are in high stress situations and they want to be working with someone they know, they trust, who shares their goals. You create that personal bond with your clients. And that's all the way up and down the food chain, from the lowliest technician to the account manager, to myself and the front office staff. You create that bond with your customer.
So how do you build trust with these customers, if that's the key to our pricing? What do you do to build trust for people who are doing 1,000 events a year?
You just never stop focusing on delivering and execution and making sure you follow through on every commitment you make. I don't think it's more more complicated than that. I think to get a new customer, there's probably a lot of things that you can do to make them make that leap of faith, but it's just being a great partner for them and delivering and doing what you say you're going to do.
It's been observed to me, I've been told, that the way people build relationships has changed in business, and I've certainly seen it overseas. In Europe, people develop a personal relationship before they do business, and in the U.S. and North America in general, we tend to do business and then build a relationship, and that first job is the opportunity to develop a relationship. Most of my clients back when I was selling, we had enough trust to get one gig. And then you built the relationship based on the success of that, hopefully, of that gig. But I'm hearing that that's not how the next generation is going to buy, that they want the relationship first before they'll do business with you. How's that going to change our business models? How does that change what a salesman has to be able to do?
Well, we have a job that we're working this week. We have a job, it's in Las Vegas, and it's the second of 3 in the series. And it's taken us 2 years with this group of people to get to this stage of a 3-step audition for us. And, we just kind of stayed in the background. We asked them how their events were going. Offered up some tips, invited them to some various hospitality things, but just kept the relationship open, friendly, and not, we understand you have loyalty to who you have, until they didn't. When they started talking to us about their concerns and problems, we're like, well, those are the types of things that we like to anticipate. And, we kind of build up that relationship. We had a little bit of trust going in. And now they're able to see us in action, and our crew, everything that they're doing, the Midwest, warm and friendly, we're all family kind of thing on the job sites, and they're feeling that this week. Things are going well, and we have the right people going out and meeting with them and discussing how's everything going. They're getting the right amount of pampering and attention right now to move this to the next step. So, beyond that, getting referred to get in the door with someone. You know, you got to use the people that you've done a great job for before as key weapons to get in the door with somebody else.
Well, I'm very grateful that we got to spend some time on the pricing topic, and I think we get some good information out of this group that we can use to improve our businesses. Now, let me just tell you, pricing has become a huge topic in my consulting practice in 2013 and into 2014. It's a big topic, especially in rental-based companies where pricing is essentially arbitrary and there's a lot of competition going on. But in systems integration, the paradigm has been shifting from products to services and now to the customer for a couple of years. And our old pricing models simply don't work. So this is a worthwhile discussion to have. Now, Mark makes a great point. You know, you have to build value into the things that can't be commoditized. Okay? We use the word commoditization, and I reject it a little bit because nothing that we're doing in AV is really commoditized the way that we think it is. Commoditization is just our way of expressing our frustration that we don't have the control over margins that we used to. And there's a lot of truth to that, but blaming it on an economic commoditization is the wrong way out. It doesn't actually solve your problem. We need to talk about that a little bit. And Rusty says it very succinctly. He says, you have to tell your story better. Okay? Prices aren't eroding. What's eroding is our ability to express a unique value proposition that's worth something or that's worth more than our competitor's value proposition. If you don't tell your story better, then you're going to be stuck in this degenerative pricing paradigm that we've been experiencing really for about the past dozen years or so. So, I don't think we're really commoditized. I think the industry as a whole has missed the change in the pricing model from, as I said, the product-based pricing of the dealer model that we all grew up with to the service-based model where we're actually charging for our services, and that's where we're going to derive value and profit for our organizations. There's still a tendency to rely on the equipment to generate profit. Equipment is not the product, it's a tool. And if it's a tool, our margins are going to be a little bit lower. How we improve that tool through our services is what's really valuable to our clients. So now, look at systems integration. I think this is a good example. There was back when I started, margins were 40 or 50% on equipment in the 80s and the early 1990s. And nowadays, we're lucky to see 5 to 15% net margins on equipment. What we forget was that in 1990, installation was extremely low tech. There wasn't a whole lot we were adding to it. We have a parallel to that in the rental business. Our equipment was very simple. Lots of people knew how to set it up. There wasn't a whole lot to differentiate yourself other than just being good customer service. You didn't have to be a rocket scientist to be successful. In other words, the value-added resellers of the 90s were adding very little value, but we made up for it on the equipment. So today, the value of an installation and the value of a large stage event has shifted from products to solving a problem. We're providing solutions. So their expectations of fit and finish are much higher, and they're very dependent on the human factor. But our pricing models haven't really changed. So in another roundtable session, we talk about content production and the importance of selling solutions instead of gear. Okay, that's a very good companion piece to this discussion on pricing. It's a different pricing model. If we can understand how to price content and production services, then I think we'll do a much better job of how to price our show services or our installation services. Okay? Now, what's the real issue in all of this? The real issue is not how we price things, though we do need to understand it better. The real issue is salesmanship and negotiating skills. That's what it all comes down to. Because what's going to happen is, someone like me can come in and help you fix your pricing problems. We can show you what the market pricing is. We can change where you make money. But the very first thing that's going to happen is somebody's going to say, well, my customer won't pay for that. Unfortunately, it's probably you that's going to say that. That's what we have to overcome. Customers will pay for it. Like Rusty says, we have to tell our story better. That mantra is just not true.
The mantra that our customers won't pay for this is not true. It's destructive, and we've got to learn to overcome that. So, my takeaways from this video. For you, margin-based selling instead of markup. You need to understand what things cost for your company to deliver and then add a margin to it rather than what they cost and adding a markup. I have lots of resources on understanding the difference between margin and markup, but the important thing is that this is a mentality, okay? If you're thinking of cost instead of price and a discount, you're going to run your business very, very differently, okay? You need to create more profitable opportunities by using better salesmanship and negotiating skills. This is training. This is why I really embrace bringing people in from outside of the industry, because other industries are much better at training salespeople than we are. We try to hire salespeople who are technical and they can talk about the technology and the products, but that's not getting us better pricing. In fact, those kinds of salespeople are what's driving our margins down because they're focused on product and not on solutions. And on top of all that, they don't have the negotiating skills, but they know an awful lot about how the widgets work together. So, very important takeaways from the pricing discussion. I think this is a video that you can watch over and over again and get little more nuances out of it. But the important thing is use the resources that are available to understand what's going on in the industry and change your pricing paradigm so that you can take advantage of it. So don't forget to share this with your team, and thanks for watching.